Today we're going to talk about one tip that could help you ride smoother and faster. This tip is pretty broad and it sometimes may seem even counterintuitive, but when you master this, it can really help you take your riding to the next level. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're a first-time viewer, my name is Jeff Lenosky. Today is going to be an awesome day because we're going to talk about one tip that could be used across several different riding situations. Like I mentioned in the intro, it might sound counterintuitive, but if you want to ride smoother and faster, my tip is stop pedaling so much. If we only rely on pedal strokes to move our bike forward, that means lots more pedal revolutions, so more opportunities to strike your pedals on the ground. It's also going to require more traction on your rear tire, and since our legs are some of the heaviest parts of our body, it's pretty difficult to stay settled and sound, ready to tackle technical terrain if your legs are constantly moving. If riders remain centered on their bikes and only rely on pedal strokes to move their bike forward, they're not using their bodies or the terrain that they're riding on to help move their bike forward. In order to pedal less, we need to be much more dynamic on our bikes. I like to talk about creating momentum on our bikes by using the X and the Y axis. Obviously, our pedals can move our bike forward, but we can also do that with our bodies. In order to do that, we need to get a bunch of bend in our elbows and some in our knees and use that to push the bike forward. One of the most common situations I see riders struggle with is on small uphill step-ups. On an uphill, you're constantly running out of speed, so you need to figure out a way to create momentum and keep the bike moving. The problem is, if we only rely on pedal strokes, then we have to take pedal strokes when we may not want to, and oftentimes we end up pedal striking right into the obstacle that we're trying to get up onto. Another problem is we need more traction, so a lot of times you'll see riders get their front wheel up great, and then their back tire will lose traction on the obstacle that are trying to get up onto. If we're riding up a hill and we're in a pretty low gear and those pedal strokes aren't moving our bikes too far to begin with, why not just use our arms? I can get more distance by creating some bend in my elbows, getting closer to the handlebars, and then using that to thrust my bike further forward than the pedal stroke would take me.
Obviously, you're gonna have to pedal your bike, but the trick is learning to pedal your bike as little as you need to.
The first drill I like to have people practice is a drill called the stop and go. Now practice this seated and standing. When I'm seated, I like to drop my seat about an inch or two. That gives me a little bit of float above the saddle. Ride forward at a slow pace so that your bike slows down, but allow your body to keep moving forward. That'll put some bend in your elbows and use that bend to accelerate the bike forward again. Squeezing your brakes is going to simulate what it would be like to do a technical step up on a climb. The next drill I like to teach people is the bump and go. For this one, you're going to ride into a curb height obstacle. Lifting the front tire is going to help create that bend in your elbows. And then we want to practice the timing so that when our back tire gets close to the obstacle, we use our arms to get the bike up onto the curb versus a pedal stroke. With a little bit of practice, you can break the habit of immediately engaging a pedal stroke to get your back tire up onto the obstacle. That'll help you ride smoother, and it'll require a lot less traction at your back tire and increase your chances for success when you're trying to get up on stuff like that. One more tip about getting up onto obstacles. We need to unweight the back tire. I see a lot of riders do a great job lifting their front tire, but they just remain static on the bike. When we lift our front tire, we need to unweight the back as we do the push. We want to be able to lift just the bike and not our body weight and the bike. Those two drills should get you moving in the right direction, pun intended, for thinking about how you can use your body and your arms in order to keep your bike moving in that X axis. Now let's talk about how moving up and down the Y axis can be used to move us forward. When I ride on flat ground, it's my body weight plus the bike. If I stomp through the ground, my bike momentarily gets heavy, and afterwards, it's a little bit light. Imagine standing on a bathroom scale. I could stomp down, make my body weight a little bit heavier. Afterwards, I'm gonna be lighter for a second. So a downslope that has some forward momentum built into it is gonna get increased if I stomp into it. An upslope that wants to slow us down is gonna slow me down less if I do a little bit of stomp on the flat ground beforehand and make myself light going into it. Since mountain bike trails are never flat, we need to learn to use the terrain to our advantage. One example of riders using their pedals instead of pumping is when you see newer riders learn to jump. A lot of times, as soon as they hit the landing, they immediately initiate a pedal stroke. Now, if we're pedaling, we can't pump. And if we're pumping, we can't pedal. On jump lines where the jumps are spread really far apart, it might not matter, but it's still developing a bad habit. As trails get more technical and landings get closer to takeoffs, rather than pedaling and bobbing our legs all over the place, why not use a pump to stay much more sound? In most instances, I can gain more speed by pumping into that landing versus that pedal stroke. Let's talk about the opposite. When we're rolling into the face of something steep, a lot of times I'll see riders stay centered and just smash into an upslope. If I give a good stomp on the flat ground beforehand, it's going to make my bike light and allow me to coast up that face a lot easier. Now let's talk about how we bring that to the trail. The best place to practice your pumping is at, you guessed it, a pump track. Pump tracks are a great way to work on your pumping, and they really do cross over to the trail. So if you've never ridden one, take your mountain bike, head over to the pump track and start pumping. Pump tracks are awesome for learning to pump because they're big, crude blobs, and the motor skills needed to do it aren't super fine. So it's a great way to refine your technique. So dial it in at the pump track first and then take it to the trail. And a great way to do that is to ride a section that you're super familiar with that has all those features: little dips, little rises, undulations, crevices, all that kind of stuff, and practice stomping into the ground. A lot of times I'll challenge my friends, we'll do no pedal challenges so you can make it further down the trail, relying just on the features of the trail and working our bikes into the ground. The cool thing about practicing this is it's super fun, but then when you get into a situation and you can't pedal, you will have already practiced it just having fun, and it'll make it a lot more natural, and you just integrate it right into your riding. The whole purpose of this video was to get you thinking about how you can use your body much more dynamically on the trail to ride smoother and create momentum. I had a ton of fun making this video. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you found it informative. Try out those drills. It will make you feel more confident on your bike. Until next time, get out there and be a boss.